In our new episode this week, I interview a married couple, Joe, who's 64, and Carmen, who's 57, who discovered a new sense of sexual adventurousness when they got together later in life. So much so that it led them to produce and star in adult videos that they shared on the internet, which cost Joe, the husband, his job as chancellor and professor at the University of Wisconsin at Crosse. Joe and Carmen had both been married before, and after I talked to them, I started thinking about how few stories we hear about in-progress marriages. Like not stories at the very beginning or ones about marriages in crisis or at the very end of a marriage after very many years. You just don't hear from couples who are in it. I'll celebrate my 10-year wedding anniversary this summer. And on our Plus feed this week, I invited my husband Arthur back on the show to do the first interview he's taped with me in more than a decade. And we actually took questions from our senior supervising producer, Daisy Rosario, who's been married to her wife for a year. Among her questions for us was one about whether we'd ever wished we had a prenup.
This question prompts me to daydream a little bit about like what sort of prenuptial agreement we could have formed regarding certain household chores.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
But the problem with that kind of agreement is I don't know what the penalties would need to be because I don't want to not be married to you if you don't do the chores. I just want to have a little more leverage.
More leverage, huh? Arthur and I also took a few moments to remember Al Simpson, our friend who died on March 14th and who is being remembered at memorials across Wyoming in the coming days. Al became a part of my life because Arthur, who was a stranger to Al, wrote him a letter asking for help with our relationship. And Al responded and stepped in. It was the first of many great kindnesses he did for me and Arthur.
I think what's going to take a long time to process is just that we're living together in a world that he helped make for us through that moment. And there are not that many people we can say that about.
You mean that our family exists, that our children exist?
Yeah.
That our marriage exists.
I told June, we might have to rename her Al. She didn't like it.
You can hear Arthur and me and Daisy's great questions for us in the Slate Plus feed right now. If you are not already signed up, it is easy. Just go to slate.com/DSM Plus, or you can find a link on the Death, Sex, and Money show page on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. And remember, along with these special drops, Slate Plus members get access to ad-free listening. Thank you for supporting our show in this way. It matters. And now, the story of another married couple, a former university chancellor named Joe and his wife Carmen, who made adult videos of themselves under the name Sexy Happy Couple.
We made these videos on our own time, with our own money, not affiliated with the institution.
The beauty of what we did was that we did it for ourselves, and it really is, dare I say, art.
This is Death, Sex, and Money. The show from Slate about the things we think about a lot and need to talk about more. I'm Anna Sale.
If fashion is your thing, eBay is it. eBay's where I find all my favorites, from handbags to iconic streetwear, all authenticated. For real. This time, a little Supreme, some Gucci. I even have that vintage Prada on my watch list. That's why eBay's my go-to for all my go-tos. Yeah, eBay. The place for new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion. eBay. Things people love.
Your data is like gold to hackers, and they'll sell it to the highest bidder. Are you protected? McAfee helps shield you, blocking suspicious texts, malicious emails, and fraudulent websites. McAfee's secure VPN lets you browse safely, and its AI-powered text scam detector spots threats instantly. You'll also get up to $2 million of award-winning antivirus and identity theft protection, all for just $39.99 for your first year. Visit McAfee.com. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
The porn that Joe Gow and Carmen Wilson make together is unusual, and as they see it, wholesome. The videos sometimes start out looking like a vegan cooking show. Carmen is usually doing the cooking, while she and Joe interview an established porn star, and then they all have sex. Joe and Carmen thought of these videos as art projects that they uploaded to the internet. Joe's bosses at the public university where he was serving as chancellor found out about them. Joe knew this hobby could make things uncomfortable at work, but he hadn't been too worried. The videos weren't that easy to find, and he thought even if professional contacts got wind of them, it was something they could just ignore.
There still was a sense of, well, maybe what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah.
That, does somebody really want to come forward and said, well, I happen to be trolling around a porn site and what were you looking for? Because that's the way these people typically operate. They do not want a lot of attention. In this case, they did. But I just never dreamed that they would actually say, we're going to not only fire you as chancellor, but we're going to fire you as a tenured professor. That's very unusual and has led to a lawsuit that we recently filed.
But I guess I do wonder, it sounds like in your mind, it was very clearly this was something you did on your own time. It was compartmentalized from work. Do you understand that others might have the worldview that you were in a position of authority representing an institution and that leading a diverse community, this might not be considered an appropriate thing for a leader to do?
Let's put it this way. I understand the awkwardness of it as far as being the leader of the institution. Yeah. And that's why I was on my way out anyway. I had done it for 16 years and I thought, I'd want to be a little more free to be me, if you will. Mm-hmm. What I don't get is, and a lot of people don't understand this, when you're a faculty member, your job is to search for the truth and disseminate that truth. And that can be a process of experimentation. It can be a process of trial and error. I mean, I think students want to be at a university that is very open-minded and that, really does say, yeah, let's explore controversial things.
When I talked with Joe and Carmen, I quickly learned that experimentation wasn't just something they believed in. It was foundational to their relationship. They've both worked in academia for a long time, though Carmen started her career as a therapist. They became colleagues and friends at the University of Wisconsin, but they were married to other people at the time. Then Carmen moved around to other jobs, and they were in and out of touch. And years later, after their other marriages ended, they noticed there was a spark that was worth exploring.
I was, I think, 52 or, really in midlife. So who do I really know that could be a romantic partner that is a vegan, that understands higher ed? So that lined up really nicely. What we had no idea of knowing was really the sexual part. Like that was the big awakening because there were things about Carmen that I had no idea when I was working with her that I was like, oh, wow, okay, you're into that. And then it made me feel very comfortable disclosing, and I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to understand that. So you start kind of seeing each other. This is in a period where you're it sounds like a complicated time of relationships ending, new connections being discovered. When you all were first beginning to talk about intimacy and what was important to you, did you have adventurous sides that you'd long sort of cultivated, or were you both more in kind of, I want to do something new? Like what did you discover about each other?
that we both like sex and we weren't satisfied in our previous relationships. I think that was a really big thing. I mean, for Joe, I think it was, when he was like, "You like sex that much?" I'm like, "Yes, I do."
And that she disclosed that, "Oh, I'm bisexual."
Yeah.
And I thought, well, now that's really interesting, because that means that you'll never really be like satisfied with just the same thing, if you will. And
that's true.
Felt that way in terms of, I had just come out of a 25 plus year marriage, and I was faithful the whole time, but it was just not fulfilling to me. And I thought, is there a way to live that you could sort of have the best of both worlds, which is a very adventurous, active sex life and a nice relationship? And, we tried polyamory, Carmen and I, for about, 15 seconds. And we found that's not what we're after,
Why not? What happened? What didn't work for you about it?
I mean, I guess jealousy, for lack of a better word, probably. It was just this sense that we were with other people, not together.
And that's when we stumbled onto the notion of monogamy with benefits. And what we found that is, if you pay someone to have sex with the both of us, there's nothing attached to it at all. It's like any other professional service that you could go and get a pedicure, and you pay, and okay, maybe we'll see you again, maybe we won't. And we started that with a trip to a legal brothel out in Nevada, and found that to be really interesting, that you could go and have a fun experience with somebody, but there wasn't really available where we were in the Midwest. And so we, and also too, there tend to be a lot more women who are working as sex workers than men, at straight men. It just seems that way. We haven't researched it, but that was our situation. And so we were at a conference in Chicago in a hotel downtown.
An academic conference.
Yeah, it was. But now this happened.
We're all kind of shenanigans happening.
That's right. You got it.
But this happened at night, so it wasn't on conference time. But I was looking in the newspaper about, well, what's going on here tonight in the Loop area, and there was some male stripper review. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I read the ad for this group, and it said, we also do private shows in homes and hotels. We're in a hotel right now. So I called up the number and I said, we're this middle-aged couple. We're looking for a guy to come and do a show at our hotel. And we did that, and it was really fun. And in the course of that experience, this guy said, there's this conference coming up called Exotica in the summer, and they have people from all kinds of roles in the adult industry, and you could probably get some time with them. And we were sort of laughed at that and thought, well, okay, whatever. And then we went home and we were thinking, well, gee, we could make a little documentary at this conference, and maybe we could pay somebody to interview with us and then have sex. And we did that, and it was really fascinating.
I do wonder, both being in leadership positions at work, and Joe, you're at an academic conference. Presumably that academic conference was work travel. Did you feel, both of you, that there were some risks to sharing outside your relationship, the sexual experimentation that you wanted to get into?
Well, I don't know that anybody really knew about it, and we weren't saying much about it. Now when we had that stripper come to the hotel in Chicago, and again, it was at night, so it was not, we had to go down and meet him in the lobby because the key access in the elevator, you needed a key. And I imagine there are people who wondered why we were meeting up with those stripper guys, they look the part, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
although that conference is so huge. I mean, it's literally thousands of people. And so the likelihood that people would know exactly who we were, we didn't wear our conference badges, that's for sure. So it could have been that nobody noticed, or maybe somebody noticed. It's hard to say, but I wasn't that concerned.
I see.
And the other thing is, I think, as we've talked to many, many people about this, there's this sense that, we did this all the time. It was just, we were always having other people in, and we were making a lot of porn. And the reality is that these experiences were kind of a once a year experience. We did buy a video camera early on because we both liked porn, and it's like, well, maybe what it would be like to film ourselves and watch ourselves. And so there's this funny moment where we go into the local big box electronics store, and the person in the nice polo shirt says, "Can I help you?" And we said, yeah, we're looking for a video camera. And so she's showing us, and she said, "So what are you going to film?" And I said, "Stuff." And she said, like sports? I'm like, yeah, like sports. Yeah. You're going to need a tripod. And so, and by golly, we did need a tripod.
And I guess I just want to understand, how did you come to that level of comfort in communicating about what you might want to try, and just physical safety of being on camera together? Like, where did that come from in your connection? How did you discover that you had that?
I think the fact that we had become such good friends over the years that we had worked together, and we shared personal details of our lives, some of our frustrations with our family, our partners, so we had a level of friendship intimacy as a base that we started from. And I think that made it very natural to talk about intimacy on another level.
And, and I don't know that I'll give you too much information. I've always had erectile dysfunction issues, and, we had some of that when we got together, and she was really great. And it's probably because of her therapy background at kind of working me through that. And that felt really beautiful, to have a partner that was not so quick to be like, okay, well, this is not working, and then, hand in hand, I don't know if that's the right metaphor, but with that, Carmen is multi-orgasmic, and I had never experienced that before. And so it was just this really interesting time of discovery in midlife, when you're like aware, you know what? I don't have unlimited time, and I better make the most of what I have.
Coming up, what happens when the thrill of private exploration also brings with it the thrill of attracting an online audience? As I mentioned at the top of this episode, in the Slate Plus feed this week, Death, Sex, and Money's Daisy Rosario asks me and my husband Arthur some questions about marriage, now that we're about 10 years in. And one of the things we ended up talking about was how important it is to remember to have fun together.
I'm a little depressive and get down, and I can be a bit of an Eeyore about life. And I think that Anna has changed. That's part of why we're together, is I'm like, okay, this person could help with that.
If you're not already a Slate Plus member, join in and hear more of our conversation. And in next week's episode, you'll hear a very special show where we also talked about laughing alongside all the difficulties that life can throw at you. It's a live show I hosted at Sketchfest, the comedy and improv festival in San Francisco, and we called it Let's Laugh About Hard Things. Our guests included comedian Guy Branum and Chanel Miller, writer of the best-selling memoir Know My Name, in which she recounts her experience being an unnamed sexual assault victim on Stanford's campus and testifying in the criminal trial that followed. Among the ways Chanel got through that time was trying out stand-up comedy.
I appreciate darkness a lot, and I do think when you're submerged deep enough, the darkness then becomes absurd, and once it's absurd, it's funny.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I just think about issues of agency and like the way that so much of the way that we try to respect victims of sexual violence is respecting space and not demanding too much. And it is such a position of not having agency. Stand-up comedy is the reverse of that. Stand-up comedy is having complete agency, but opening yourself entirely to the world. And I wonder, was that part of your choice to do that and how those things relate to you?
It's so true, because when you're testifying, you're also into a mic and everyone is silent. When I was testifying, I hated it. And I thought, oh, I don't like being in front of people. And then I realized that's not true. I actually do like having command of a room. And I liked that in comedy, the more inappropriate I was, the more I was rewarded. Whereas in court, the more inappropriate you are, the more you are punished.
Hear more from Chanel Miller and Guy Branum and all our other guests, including an AI chatbot who ended up being quite funny, in our next episode. This episode is brought to you by Discover. If you've listened to Death, Sex, and Money for a while, you know how important acceptance is when it comes to personal growth. And you know who else is big on acceptance? Discover. You see, Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. That's a whole lot of places and a whole lot of acceptance, which is great for Discover, but even better for you. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Vacation season is nearly upon us, and this year, it's time to treat yourself to the luxe upgrades you deserve with Quince's high-quality travel essentials at fair prices. If you, like me, have had a decade-old dingy roller bag that you throw in your closet when you get home and unpack, and then when you have to pack it again, you realize, maybe I should upgrade to something that zips a little easier, go look at what Quince has on offer under their travel vertical. All kinds of high-quality luggage and just the right size bags to keep your makeup, toiletries, and jewelry sorted with the care they deserve. They even have eye masks. Who doesn't crave a silk sleep mask when they're traveling? You will feel like a grown-up on your next trip. The best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They do that by partnering with top factories. Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/DSM for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/DSM to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DSM. This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies, so you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. This is Death, Sex, and Money from Slate. I'm Anna Sale. Perhaps it's not so unusual these days for middle-aged people to explore their sensual sides in new ways. Ask Miranda July or anyone who embarks on a hot new relationship after years of routine. When Joe Gow and Carmen Wilson started an adventurous new phase together, they found they liked documenting what was happening. They started videoing themselves having sex, and they wrote a couple of nonfiction ebooks about sex and relationships using pseudonyms. But pseudonyms don't work as well when you start posting porn videos with your actual face and body. Still, to them, it felt like a different realm detached from their professional identities. They put these videos up on OnlyFans, Pornhub, a site called xHamster. And by that point, Carmen had left academia. She says she'd gotten tired of all the internal politics. And Joe was thinking about stepping away from his chancellor position and going back to teaching.
We never expected things to go where they went. I mean, and actually, we put a few videos just with the two of us, not the big stars, onto OnlyFans that fall, and we had like two people look at them.
And did you do that for like to see what if you could get money, or to see what would happen if people saw it, or what was the?
We were never in this for the money. I mean, we were really lucky that we had jobs that paid pretty well, and even now, with me being fired and Carmen not working, we have pensions. So, I mean, it was not monetary at all. It was more like we were very proud of what we had created. And we wondered, like anybody, you write a book, you hope people would read it and appreciate it, or you do a painting and you hope that people would say, that's interesting. So why don't we put these out and just see if there's any reaction? And so at the OnlyFans, there was none. And so we're on a vacation, and we happened to have dinner with the guy who edits the videos. And he said, the company that I'm with, they put them on these free sites like Pornhub and xHamster, and they do get some people watching. But, there are millions of videos. And how do you get noticed, and we didn't really do anything to try to get noticed, but we put the videos on those sites. And I think particularly the site xHamster, the algorithm was just perfect for us because we didn't realize this, but you've got two middle-aged people who are a real couple. They're not actors, and they're doing something with real high production values because we had paid a studio. And you just don't see that all the time. And so there was this weird, how many people have watched it today? Oh, 100. Wow. And they lots of thumbs up and approval, 99%. We like this. And then it was like, how many people watched it today? 1,000. 10,000.
And was that like, were you updating each other? Like, was it validating and exciting?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I checked it. Yeah. And
he would check it and tell me, and I'd be like, whoa.
In just a few weeks, we had over 1 million views. And that site xHamster, I remember looking, and there's our picture on the front homepage.
Landing page.
Yes. Number 2 creators in all of North America and Oceania for the month of December. Oh my.
And this is your actual faces, your actual bodies.
Yes.
And you live in the world.
Yeah.
And so was there ever a secondary feeling of like, oh, this is a level of exposure
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't necessarily anticipating?
Yes, absolutely. And it happened so quickly. I mean, it was like a matter of, it couldn't have been, it had to be sometime between 2 and 3 weeks that this just exploded. And I think it was just right then at that point that Joe got a call saying he needed to meet with HR and legal at the system level about a personnel issue.
Joe and Carmen were on vacation in Florida when they got that call. The university's Board of Regents had found out about the porn. The president of the University of Wisconsin system said in a statement, quote, "In recent days, we learned of specific conduct by Dr. Gow that has subjected the university to significant reputational harm. His actions were abhorrent." The problem for the university was that Joe had performed an internet porn. But initially, Joe says the grounds for disciplining him started with questions about whether he'd violated the terms of his employment by earning too much outside income.
Their big concern at that point was, well, if you make more than $1,000 a year in what's called outside activity, when you're in the role that I was in, you have to report that to the state government every year. And so they were like, did you make more than $1,000? And we didn't. The books, we have these 2 ebooks, I looked, at best made $800 one year, but not ever over the threshold. The videos at that point, nobody had paid anything to watch them. So I explained all this to these folks, and they were rather cordial. It was difficult to sort of know, where are we going from here? And then we're on our trip, and I get this email that said, "You're fired."
And the grounds for once the termination was public, the reason for the termination was also public. It became public that you had there were porn videos.
They were rather clever. They wrote and said the statement, he's been terminated because he did something abhorrent and disgusting, and we're very alarmed by his behavior. So, of course, every reporter that saw that called me up and, what did you do that was abhorrent and disgusting? So we didn't want to hide anything. I mean, we wanted to tell our side of the story as we continue to. And so we said, well, yeah, we made some videos, and then those videos were still in the world. So that created this really interesting situation where if you don't like these videos, well, then don't go look for them.
That's right.
You know, like you're the ones who are going out to find them.
I see. And you're out of state on winter break.
We're in a hotel in Florida.
And then the next thing was, and the president said, and I'm going to file a complaint to have your tenure removed. So that was December 27th, about 8:00 in the evening. And so on the 28th, we awoke very early, of course, probably didn't sleep much, and, knew the first thing we needed to do was tell our families. I'm an only child. My dad's long gone. So I called my mom, and I have a daughter, and I called her. Joe called his mom. And those were challenging phone calls, as you can imagine. And then the media explosion happened. And every minute we weren't on a plane, we were talking to media from literally all over the world.
You mentioned the phone calls that you had to make to family members when this became public that they didn't previously know. What's it been like to share that with family members?
Yeah, so for me, like I said, I needed to call my mom and my daughter, who's married and has 2 children. And I called my mom, and she lives relatively close to us, about a half hour away. And so I called her up, and I'm like, okay, here's what's happening. And she said, I love you. I support you. I mean, I think we were both crying. And then she got off the phone, and apparently her lady friends had already seen the news. So they already knew, we're just like waiting, like, when is Diane going to find out her daughter? And then the phone call with my daughter was more difficult. She was really angry and shocked, and it was a process to get through it, with both of them. But with both of them, I was able to eventually have the conversation to say, this is what this is about. They felt betrayed because, we would say we're going out to have a vacation. with some friends. I mean, we didn't say, I didn't say we're going to make porn. And my daughter's like, why couldn't you just tell me? I said, well, would you really want me to say to you, I'm going out to make porn? She's like, well, maybe yes. I'm like, okay, fair enough. But the in the months that after this came out, we see my mom about once a week, and we talked more about sex in the first few months after this came out than we had in my entire life. And she really, the most common phrase she uttered was, I had no idea. I had no idea, so she really came around to understanding that this is a potentially sex positive, adventure. And I think it helped her feel less shame around her own sexuality. She's made a couple of comments that, that she's still a sexual being, and she's my mom. I'm 57. So, she's in her 80s. And it seems like she's felt freed by this. And my daughter and I have really been able to have some good conversations that we've needed to have for a long time. And, she and her family came for Christmas this year. They live in the South, and, we have a wonderful relationship.
Now, for me, this is the hardest part. I called my mom earlier that morning. She's 92 years old. Of course, this was, how do you explain? You're going to see media stories about me and pornography. And I think she's kind of, what? I don't, and I said, I hope you still love me. And, oh, of course I will. And there were some tears, and I got to go. And that was the last time I've talked to her. She sent me some texts that were hateful. Other people in my family sent hateful texts to the extent that I had to block them. And so I'm only been in one of my siblings who is a little more open-minded. We've talked on the phone, and she says, I still love you. And I'm like, that means the world to us. And, I don't know. I mean, I think there are some people that the only way they're going to come back to us is if we say, oh, yeah, we did something horrific and we need to atone. And that just is not going to happen. So I don't know where to go from there. But yeah, that's been a huge downside. And that's something that when we talk to the performers that we've shot with, we ask them about. And as you did with us, there are varying levels of comfort with that. And some people will talk about it, other people won't. I think the male performers, they are the ones who say pretty consistently, no big deal. Everybody thinks this is pretty cool. And some people are jealous. The women, it's a whole other picture. And there's a lot of this, like I have with my family, where people are estranged and they just can't accept that this would be something that somebody would do.
This episode is brought to you by the ACLU. The ACLU believes the Trump administration is pushing a dangerous and sweeping attempt to control our bodies, our families, and our lives. And right now, a case before the Supreme Court could drastically shape the future of bodily autonomy for all. U.S. versus Skermetti centers on a Tennessee law that restricts health care access for trans youth. Tennessee has asked the court to expand the ruling that overturned Roe versus Wade to allow it. The ACLU believes continuing down this road will hurt everyone's freedom to control their bodies and lives. The ACLU and its supporters believe everyone deserves the freedom to seek the health care they need, including gender-affirming care and abortion. Learn more at aclu.org/autonomy. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Shopping at Saks is the easiest way to discover the best new styles to elevate your everyday look, especially when you're short on time. At Saks, you'll find inspiration for every occasion, from casual outfits to special events. Here's a true story. Just the other day, I realized that I don't really have a pair of quick slip-on sneakers that I feel cool in. And I actually searched on my laptop, cool mom sneakers. And that was not a very fruitful internet search. And then I went to Saks.com and I just searched under shoes and then sneakers. And I could get a good look at what's on trend, what is classic. I could think about what is the right sneaker for me in 2025. It was like having a current lookbook to help me figure out my particular cool mom sneaker identity. The thing that I can just put on with jeans and make work for errands around the neighborhood, or wear for a cool, casual look at my next work event. I'm still mulling my exact pair, but while I was there at Saks.com, I hopped over to the accessories vertical and checked out a pair of Elisa Johnson sunglasses that are also very cool. Whether you're refreshing your entire wardrobe or shopping for a vacation or just trying to find some everyday sneakers, Saks makes it fun and easy. If you are looking for a fun, effortless shopping experience and want to elevate your personal style, head to Saks. That's Saks.com for everyday inspiration. Joe Gow is currently fighting his termination as a university professor and suing the University of Wisconsin with a First Amendment lawsuit. His argument is academic in some ways. He's a media studies professor, and he argues that participating and posting porn videos has opened up important avenues for intellectual inquiry.
We didn't set out to do this, but I hope that we're getting people to rethink pornography and to say, it is so wildly popular. We really need to talk more about it. Like, why do people want to watch it? What do they want to watch? What is good? What is bad? What is healthy? And so on. I mean, right. People ask us, I would never defend all the material that's out there. I particularly find the choking to be quite disturbing and troubling. And I read an article the other day where, younger people are thinking, well, okay, I saw this in a porn video, so that's what I'm supposed to do. Whoa, we're not about that at all. And actually, one of the great things that we get in response to our videos are people say, this is the first thing I've been able to watch with my partner. We think that's just wonderful. And that people will say, those videos are hot in a wholesome way. And it's just really, nice to, we didn't plan that, but that's just who we are. And it's great to see that for some people that is helpful.
And underlying that, what I hear the argument you're making is that we need to have a conversation where it's not just sex workers who get to be sexy on the internet. It's not like it's people who have integrated lives with other parts, and that it's healthy for seeing people express their sexual sides, even if that's not their whole lives.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that even just like, it's not the professional hot people that get to be sexy. Everybody gets to be sexy, and whether it's on or off camera, whatever that is, how do you figure that out with your partner or partners, or however you structure your sexual life? Those are also conversations we need to have, in addition to the conversations about pornography and what it is and what it isn't. And what it isn't is, it is not sex education. And I think in some ways it has become sex education for teenagers. And we need to talk about how that's not really true about porn, because pornography is, and Nina Hartley came and spoke on the campus at UWL, and she said pornography is like a cartoon. It's not real. It's a fantasy. And it is not what real sex necessarily looks like for most people.
What do you understand the institution's rationale to be
just to make sure I'm clear, there's not been, it was specific that this was filmed and distributed on the internet. Professors are not routinely fired for having sex with sex workers with their partners or engaging in extramarital affairs, et cetera.
No.
Matter of fact, I mean, we know because of our work, we've been involved in some of these things. There are people who get convicted of drunk driving and it's kept quiet and life goes on, like that actually commit crimes. I mean, the thing I've said all along, we never hurt anybody. I mean, it's like, it's not even, I mean, it's a free speech issue. And right now, the big topic is hate speech. This was not hateful to anybody. It wasn't criticized. It was our own, like, if you want to look at it, you can, but you don't have to. Nobody's making you.
Has there been any insinuation, I don't know if this would come up, but that somehow being in a classroom setting with a known porn performer as a professor would create some kind of hostile environment where it's inappropriate for students? I think, has that been implied at all?
It's interesting because I offered to teach upper level, they'd be electives, and I think, the students would have the opportunity to, do you want to take that class or not? And I wouldn't be forced on anybody. But then in the hearing, the chair of the department came in quite unexpectedly and said, well, we're going to have him teaching the basic class, and that'll be required, and that'll, like you said, kind of make people feel uncomfortable. And it was like, wow, I mean, this is something we haven't talked about. So, I would never want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. I think the thing that I would hope people would feel is, well, this is an honest person. And, that they're very open about what they've done. And I'll answer questions about that. And there's a way to talk about this, as we're doing here today, that isn't going to make people feel real uncomfortable or strange. And so that I don't think that's really an issue.
Carmen, I want to ask you, because I'm struck by Joe's comfort and almost sort of just assured pride that he has nothing to be ashamed of here.
Yeah.
Do you share that sense? I mean, this has played out mostly as a drama involving Joe with his employer. Right. Anytime a woman is exposed as being sexual, there's all sorts of other baggage that comes along with it that men don't face in the same way. What's it been like for you for this to become so public?
I have gotten just a ton of support from former colleagues at nearly all my institutions, high school friends. It's been, I too am really proud of what we have done. One of my high school classmates is a physician's assistant for women's health. And she Facebook messaged me shortly after, and she's like, my old high school friend Carmen's still setting fire to the world. And she said, as a physician's assistant in women's health, a part of me is saying, yay, a postmenopausal woman enjoying sex, So I've gotten a lot of really sex positive kind of support from friends and colleagues, and that has felt amazing, and has given me the confidence, to say I'm not ashamed. I shouldn't be ashamed. We've gotten, Joe had mentioned some of the comments about, your hot and wholesome way. One of my favorite comments was a couple that wrote in and said, during COVID, our sex life really floundered and we struggled to get it back. And we saw your story and you inspired us, and we went out and bought a video camera, and now we're having great sex again. And it's like, if I can be a sex therapist in that way, that makes me warm and tingly on the inside.
That's Carmen Wilson with her husband, Joe Gow. This episode was produced by Cameron Drews. And thank you to Slate writer Dan Coyce, who had written about this story and interviewed Joe Gow previously. We'll share a link to his pieces in our show notes. The rest of the Death, Sex, and Money show team includes Andrew Dunn and Zoe Azoulay. Daisy Rosario is our senior supervising producer. Hillary Fry is Slate's editor-in-chief. You can support the production of our show by becoming a member of Slate Plus. You'll not only be supporting our work on Death, Sex, and Money, you'll also get access to ad-free listening to our show and all of the shows that Slate makes. Plus, you'll get our special Slate Plus drops, like my conversation this week with my husband, Arthur. You can subscribe directly from the Death, Sex, and Money show page on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, or just go to slate.com/DSM Plus to get access wherever you listen. Our theme music is by the Reverend John DeLure and Steve Lewis. If you're new to our show, welcome. We're glad you're here. Find us and follow us on Instagram @DeathSexMoney, and subscribe to my weekly newsletter. You can sign up at annasale.substack.com. You can also email us anytime with voice memos, pep talks, questions, or critiques at our email address, deathsexmoney@slate.com. We love hearing from you. And one more thing, talking to Joe about his sexual awakening after finding ED medication, it made me think back on our series that we called Hard, which was a 3-episode look at the development and cultural impact of erectile dysfunction drugs. We've put a link to that series in our show notes, too.
I could be a spokesperson for sildenafil, which is the generic. I could not do this without it. And I don't hide that. I mean, and actually the last video that we made, which was just the two of us, we deliberately put me taking my little pill in the video, because it's like that's part of what it's like when you're a little older. And if you can't talk about that with your partner, that's going to be a problem.
I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from Slate.
For a limited time at Verizon, you can get our best price ever for a single line. Just $45 per month when you bring your phone, which is less than you spend on Too Tired to Cook takeout every week. Get one line on Unlimited Welcome for $45 per month with autopay plus taxes and fees. Visit your local Verizon store by April 2nd to save. $20 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on Unlimited Welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.